So Impact Wrestling once again, and the issue of testing the most recent TV tapings has come up. Now, we've spoken about this quite a few times actually. I made a couple of videos about it here on the channel, but once again, it's a story that is rearing its head when it comes to Impact Wrestling. Now, I've given my opinions on this. My opinions haven't changed on this. Nevertheless, we'll get into the report, and then I'll give my opinions on yet another story about this issue for Impact Wrestling when it comes to their safety and health protocols, as long as their testing protocols at their TV tapings. Now, according to a report by Fightful Select, Impact Wrestling management have reportedly caught heat from several performers at their last TV tapings. Now, of course, the most recent TV tapings took place a couple of weeks ago. As it's been reported and we've spoken about here on the channel, at those TV tapings, Impact taped the remainder of their footage for 2020 and some of 2021 as well. At those TV tapings, I think they lasted from Monday to Friday or Saturday. They were mammoth TV tapings. They taped all of the content for the remainder of 2020 and some of the content heading up to the Hard to Kill weekend, which of course is in January of 2021. So they taped a ton of footage, which also included multiple outcomes of storylines, matches, promos, finishes, etc. But that wasn't really the major news story coming out of those TV tapings. Now, Impact Wrestling have had to put in place some COVID-19 protocols, as every other major promotion, production, sporting event, whatever has had to do to make things run in this current pandemic so they can actually run these TV tapings. However, the issue when it comes to Impact Wrestling is that their protocols do not include full COVID-19 tests for all talent in the building in Nashville, Tennessee at Skyway Studios. Now, as I mentioned, Fightful Select, which is Fightful's Patreon service, be sure to check that out. They've recently reported that there were several frustrated names backstage at the latest tapings a couple of weeks ago. Apparently the tapings seemed more, quote, unprepared and more, quote, fly by the seat of their pants than any of this year, end quote. Now, as was reported previously, and we spoke about here on the channel, there was a positive test to emerge from the most recent tapings. Fightful also reported that there were several wrestlers who claimed that they were never told about this test, and they have never had a COVID-19 test organised by Impact themselves. Talent are reportedly subject to temperature checks and a pen-to-paper check about a medical questionnaire, essentially, confirming that they don't have any symptoms prior to entering the building and coming in for these TV tapings. Now, this report is incredibly damning. If you want to question the legitimacy of it, first of all, Fightful Select were the first to report about the TV tapings filming up all of the content of 2020 and into 2021. So they have very good links when it comes to Impact Wrestling, and pretty much every Impact story they've broken this year has been dead on, so their accuracy can't really been questioned. The irony here for me, especially when we're talking about this subject again when it comes to Impact Wrestling, is when I spoke about this the first time, I got so much heat. Now, obviously, a lot of people did agree with me, and I don't much as care as people that disagree with me or agree with me. The thing I love about this channel, the thing I love about pro wrestling, is that people's opinions are so different, and everyone should be respected for their opinion. That's why I love the community we have on this channel. That's why I love the subscribers we have on this channel, that when you do leave your opinion in the comment box below, I do my best to respond and reply. I appreciate and welcome contrasting opinions, different opinions. That's what makes pro wrestling and, quite frankly, life so great. Nevertheless, I got so much heat when I spoke about the lack of testing at the Impact TV tapings, and I didn't think it was right, and I didn't think it was responsible, and I thought, quite frankly, it was incredibly irresponsible and dangerous of Impact to do so. The reason I got so much heat when I did it before is because the overriding theme of this criticism was that Dave Meltzer was the first to report this, and he was. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer, I believe it was on Wrestling Observer Radio, might have actually been in one of the newsletters. Either way, Dave Meltzer was the first to report this, and the comments that I got was, oh, you can't say that. You can't say that Impact aren't doing tests. You're making assumptions. How dare you make assumptions? You don't even know if the report's true. Dave Meltzer just hates Impact. You're assuming everything was true. Impact wouldn't be so reckless. Impact wouldn't be so dangerous. You're just making assumptions. I haven't heard any talent say that they're unhappy. You can't say that talent's unhappy. You can't say they're not getting tests. Blah, 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 blah. Well, here we are again. Here we are again. Now we have another report. It's come from Fightful this time. So let's just double check. We have Fightful with Sean Ross Sapp. We have Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer. We have other websites like Wrestling Inc. and PW Insider who have picked up on the report and haven't refuted it. there are several separate entities now that are saying the same thing. The narrative is the same across the board. So I think this idea of, oh, we're assuming things are true, we're kind of past that at this point. As I mentioned earlier on, Sean Ross Sapp has very good contacts in Impact and a very good track record, especially when it comes to Impact. Now, I'm not saying all of these reporters are always right. Nobody's always ever right. And I am the first to criticize people for not being right, or first to saying maybe we need to see other people report this as well. Maybe we need to see other people fact check this, whatever. All I'm saying is it's the same story being reported again, but it's multiple other sources saying this is true. And the comments that I got before was, it's definitely not true, it isn't true. Well, we had the initial report by Dave Meltzer, which we spoke about. Then, on top of that, we then have Ethan Page pulling out of his remaining commitments for 2020 because he was exposed to a positive test, which confirms the report that there was a positive test at the Impact taping. Now you've got this follow-up saying that there definitely hasn't ever been testing at the tapings. This has been a pandemic that's been going on in full effect in the United States and around the world, especially since like March. Everyone's known the situation since March and April, and Impact have been running TV tapings the entirety of this time. Impact has not missed a TV taping, and yet they haven't done a single COVID test themselves onto talent, according to the sources by Fightful Select. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And it's no coincidence. It's no coincidence that Ethan Page has to pull out of his commitments right after this COVID test, this positive COVID test. It doesn't look good. And my opinion hasn't changed on this at all. I mentioned this at the start, I would give my opinion on this. My opinion hasn't changed at all since this was first reported by Dave Meltzer. It doesn't look good for Impact. It doesn't look good. And if it is true, which it looks more and more likely that it is true, it is highly, highly irresponsible and not a good look for Impact Wrestling. I mentioned before, and I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's worth repeating because the topic is so serious, that a lot of these guys that work for Impact Wrestling, they are free to work independent dates. Now, we know the independent scene at the moment is practically dead. I mean, there are very, very select independent shows to actually work, but the ones that are up and running, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, there isn't testing. There is social distancing in the crowd and mask wearing, but who knows? Quite frankly, who knows? So these guys are allowed to work these independent dates where we have seen big outbreaks. We have seen big outbreaks from these independent shows, and then they are allowed to come in and work these Impact tapings where there's no testing there as well. That's how this whole thing spreads. That's how all of this spreads, is because a lack of testing and a lack of safety and health protocols in place, and it doesn't look good. And on top of that, some of the people backstage at Impact, some of the talent weren't even told of this positive test. They had to find out by backstage gossip. How terrible is that? I mean, not only is there no testing, which to me is crazy that we're in December at this point, we know what we have to do in this current climate. We know what we have to do to put on TV tapings, productions, sporting events that are safe for the talent that's participating. We know at this point, this is nothing new. So the fact that Impact isn't running these tests is crazy, but then they're not telling talent when a positive test does fall in their lap, which what they didn't do, I guess the talent themselves would have had to have done. It's crazy to find out something that serious through backstage gossip is crazy, and rightfully so. By all accounts, according to these several reports now, they were furious and they were baffled why nobody told them of this situation. Because look where we are right now in the terms of the time of the year. We're right in the holiday periods. This TV taping took place prior to Thanksgiving, and there was all of this discussion in the media and in mainstream news about what to do for Thanksgiving this year. There was warnings about you should stay at home, you shouldn't travel, keep Thanksgiving gathering small, keep Christmas celebration small, stay socially distant, don't travel, stay at home. Again, I'm not an American, so I don't know everything about Thanksgiving, and I don't know if I can really comment on it that much. But I've mentioned this scenario before, and it's worth repeating. Imagine if you're an Impact talent, you know that this mammoth TV taping that's going to last 5-6 days is your last commitment of the year, and you're like, right, I'm going to smash this out of the park for Impact. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a tough, grueling 5-6 days, but I'm willing to commit. You do all of your work. You're tired. You're beat up. You're ready to enjoy the holidays. You're ready to enjoy time with your family for Thanksgiving. And then you find out by the scuttlebutt backstage, quite frankly, the gossip backstage, the rumors backstage that someone's tested positive, and you might have been exposed to that. your head would explode. Your head would explode. You would say, are you serious? Are you serious? Now what happens when I go back to my family? Now what happens when I see my close friends? Now what happens when I'm traveling throughout the airports? Now what happens for anything like that? It really does open your eyes and say, well, how is this being run? How is this being run? Because their Thanksgiving plans, their holiday plans, all of that, they must be questioning, do I have to, like Ethan Page, do I have to quarantine now for 2 weeks? What's the situation? All of this. And it seems so avoidable that all of this could be avoided by just doing testing before the tapings. The tapings last 5 or 6 days. I'm guessing that would mean they have to test every single day. I don't know. That's something for them to figure out. That's something for them to prioritize when it comes to the health and safety of their talent. You can't find out through gossip. You should find out through the official systems via the officials of the company. That's a well-run company. And it's just... It just doesn't seem right. It just doesn't seem right. And once again, I caught a lot of heat for talking about this before and raising my criticism and frustration when I've read these reports for not doing the testing. That can't be the case. They wouldn't do that. You're making assumptions. You're not being thorough in checking these things through. And I said it before, I'll say it again. All I can do is comment on what's being reported. And when things are being reported over and over and over again, saying the exact same thing, what more can you say? The evidence is there. The evidence is there. And on top of that, this was my point before, and this is, I guess, the most important point when it comes to all of this. All of these allegations with the lack of testing and the safety of talent and the finding out about these tests by gossip, Backstage, all that stuff is quite serious allegation. That is quite a serious thing to read, and that isn't good PR, and it isn't a good look, like I mentioned, for Impact Wrestling. If Impact Wrestling read that, and they had been doing testing, and they had been very thorough with their testing and their track and trace and all that kind of stuff, if they had been doing the right thing at these TV tapings, if there had been strict safety measures in place, they would be outraged, right? You would be outraged because these would be false reports. You would be absolutely outraged. I can't believe people are reporting this, saying this, spreading these lies when we've actually been doing the testing. But that hasn't been the case. That just hasn't been the case. Impact has said nothing. They have said absolutely nothing. They haven't come out and said we do testing. They haven't come out and said this is outrageous. We take care of our talent, blah, blah, blah. The silence is deafening, and the silence tells you everything you need to know about this subject when it comes to Impact Wrestling. And once again, it raises the question, the biggest question, why in North America is Impact Wrestling the only major company not to do COVID testing before the tapings? Why? Every other company does it. WWE, AEW, you can say, well, they have the funds to do it. They have the monetary means to do it, right? Okay. MLW, they do it. Ring of Honor, they do it. They went on hiatus to ensure that they could do it. They went on hiatus to ensure that when they did run TV tapings, it would be the safest way possible. And they could do it safely with testing and everything that was necessary. So why can't Impact do it? Why can't Impact do it now? Especially now, especially they know what they have to do, why can't they do it? At this point in time, there is no reason for them not to do it. And they have to address this. Once they have their TV tapings next year, or whenever they have their next set of TV tapings, they have to address this. After all the hard work they have done this year, I'm very thorough on this channel. I'm always talking about Impact Wrestling. I'm always praising Impact Wrestling, quite frankly. I'm always saying of the great things they're doing, the great product they have, the great work that they have done in 2020 and over the last few years. But it can all disappear like that. Bad PR is so difficult to shift. So difficult to shift, especially in today's culture of social media. It can just snowball so quickly. And Impact have to address this. This isn't March or April anymore. We know what we have to do to run a TV taping. We know what we have to do to run a production, to run a sporting event, whatever. We know what we have to do. The processes are there, and the processes are available for them to use. And I don't even think you can use the excuse of, wow, testing, it can be expensive, because every other company does it. And this isn't like it's a company that's not well funded. Impact Wrestling is owned by Anthem. They are fine when it comes to finances. Yes, they probably have a budget. And yes, like every other company, pro wrestling or not, they've probably been hurt by the last 9 months, 12 months, whatever, due to the whole pandemic and current climate. Of course they have, but you do what's right for your talent. You do what's right to do things safely and properly. And right now, what's the difference between Impact and an indie show when it comes to health and safety? Nothing. Nothing, because there's no testing. And it just seems crazy to me. It just seems crazy to me. And as I mentioned, this report is now supported by people at Fightful, by people at PW Insider, by people at Wrestling Inc. and the original Meltzer report. And the report by Sean Ross Sapp says talent isn't happy about this. The report by Meltzer says that talent thought this was irresponsible. And I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked. I'm shocked when I first saw the report, although whenever we first reported it, because it just seemed to me like absolute craziness and mind-blowing craziness that Impact wouldn't be doing testing at these TV tapings. And you have to look at Impact. They managed to stay open the entirety of this whole time during the pandemic. And I thought at the time, they must have got things right. They must be doing the right protocols and the right testing. And they weren't. They weren't. And as a fan and as someone that supported Impact, it's incredibly disheartening. And I'm not going to be an Impact fan, and I'm not going to not cover Impact on the channel here, because we're all pro wrestling fans. I like Impact. I'm still a vocal supporter of Impact. But this is an issue. This is absolutely an issue. It doesn't look good, and it's reckless. It's absolutely reckless, especially when you've got other companies similar in size to Impact, and they are doing testing, like MLW, like Ring of Honor. So what's the difference? What is the issue here? What is the reason, quite frankly, that Impact can't do testing? It's craziness. And you look at the issues right now in the United States of certain states where it's out of control. Was it the other, I believe, was it yesterday or a couple of days ago, the virus, it's the number one cause of death in America right now. And you're having no testing at your TV tapings? It's madness. It's madness. And I've been heavily critical of any company with slip-ups when it comes to this. I was heavily critical of WWE in the spring and the summer for their lack of testing, for when they were doing exactly the same as Impact are doing right now. They didn't do testing at their performance center. They did temperature checks and medical questionnaires. Sometimes it didn't matter. They let you in anyway. And then for whatever reason, rumors about Kevin Owens confronting Vince McMahon on the issue or whatever, now they have thorough testing, mask wearing, social distancing. It's incredibly strict, as it should be. So you have to be critical and you have to be consistent on this, which is what I am on this. It's not right. It's reckless and it's wrong. And Impact has to address this. They have to address this. All the work they've done this year, trending #1 worldwide when they had Slammiversary, trending, in the United States when they had Slammiversary, trending during Bound for Glory, the big signings, the Good Brothers, the return of Eric Young, Heath, this partnership now with AEW, Kenny Omega appearing on Impact on Tuesday. It's going to be marred by, what their issues are when it comes to testing. And what happens if someone gets sick? What happens if someone's family member gets sick? What happens if a close friend of theirs gets sick? And I disagree with the argument of, these wrestlers know what they're getting themselves into. They signed on the dotted line. They don't have to show up. Well, they do. They do. The idea of the wrestler doesn't have a choice, they don't. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, they do, but realistically, they don't. Look at the climate we're in right now. It's a pandemic. Money is tight. Times are tough. This isn't a company as well where the talent's getting heavily and highly paid. I'm sure some are, but I'm sure some aren't. Times are tough. Money is tight. And they might have to go to that TV taping to make ends meet and risk exposing themselves because of it and not get a test because of it. And I am so grateful for all the entertainment that all these pro wrestling companies offer, but it's not right. It's not right. This isn't March or April anymore. We're in December. There's a vaccine that's coming out soon. And we're still not doing testing. We still haven't got around to testing an Impact. Widespread testing is there, and if you want to put on a show, you should do testing. That's that end of. That is really it. And as someone who covers Impact here a lot here on the channel, it's very disappointing to hear this story be essentially confirmed. And you have to look at this now when it comes to the Impact and AEW relationship. Whether or not it's like the reports we're hearing, whether it's not that intertwined, whether it is, quite intertwined, whether there is an invasion angle, whether there is a pay-per-view, whether there is a TV special of Impact versus AEW. Whatever the case, why would an Impact, why would an AEW talent come to an Impact taping at this point? Why? Because they're not going to get tested. And then you run the risk of exposure. What happens if you go to this TV taping, you catch the virus, or you're exposed to someone that does test positive eventually? Then you've got to quarantine for 2 weeks and you miss 2 weeks of AEW TV. I'm sure that's a conversation. I'm sure that has to be a conversation from AEW's point of view going, well, we're not sure in the future. Do we really want to send our talent to your tapings when you're not that safe because you're not doing testing? It's a conversation. If I'm a talent, if I'm a top tier talent, I'm going, why would I want to go there? Then I might be exposed, then I have to quarantine, then I miss TV, then I don't get paid for whatever reason because I didn't show up at TV. It's a question. It's a question. So, again, as I mentioned the first time I read the report about this issue, it's disappointing, and hopefully Impact will address it. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on reportedly Impact officials having heat with talent after the lack of testing at recent taping? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, chatting about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.